What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and what the fuck has happened to MMA? Casual MMA fans rag on me for loving professional wrestling so much, and they'll run pro wrestling down like there's no tomorrow. At least pro wrestling fucking admits that it's scripted and that it's entertainment. MMA has turned into the biggest fucking soap opera that I have ever seen. And as I said, the shit hit the fan today with the news that UFC 151, the Jon Bones Jones versus Dan Henderson card for the light heavyweight championship has been officially scrapped. Fuck. Alright. If you don't know what happened, here's the skinny. Dan Henderson has suffered a partial tear in his MCL, I believe. Partial tear of the meniscus. His lateral movement, his side-to-side movement was just really bad, and basically what their camp said was that, like, yeah, I could go out there, but I mean, there's no way that I'm going to be able to compete, and like even with like wrestling and grappling on the ground, it was really hurting him. So Dan Henderson is injured. Dan Henderson is out of that fight, and that happened on, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday. On Wednesday, yesterday, Dana White gets in touch with Chael Sonnen. As everybody knows, Chael Sonnen and Jon Bones Jones have been kind of having this Twitter war back and forth. So they get in touch with Chael. Yes, Lyoto Machida is the one that was supposed to get the next shot, but Lyoto had already headed back to Brazil, so they couldn't get a hold of him in enough time. So they moved right to Chael Sonnen, and they said, Chael, this is what the issue is. Hendo's hurt. Jones needs an opponent. The fight is like a week away, a week and a couple days away. Sonnen says yes. Sonnen accepts it. Sonnen says, I'll fucking fly out to Vegas tonight and fight him if you want me to. I'll fight him in any casino you want me to in the whole country. I just want to fight Jon Jones. So awesome. UFC turns around and UFC starts working on promotional material for Jon Jones versus Chael Sonnen. They take that to Jon Jones and to the Greg Jackson camp, and they fucking turn the fight down. Jon Jones, the light heavyweight champion of the world, turns down a fight with Chael Sonnen, somebody that has just moved up from the weight class lower than them, just moving up from middleweight, turns the fucking fight down on the advice of Greg Jackson, his trainer. I have some quotes here. These are quotes attributed directly to Greg Jackson from Mauro Ranallo's MMA Show podcast that I just listened to. Greg Jackson said, it's dangerous to fight on 3 days' notice. He seems to think that this is a fucking 3 days' notice fight for some reason. Said that we can't fight Chael Sonnen because we didn't have a complete fight camp. Says we can't fight an opponent on Chael Sonnen's level on that short notice. Basically all went back to short notice, short notice, short notice. So they turned the goddamn fight down. So Dana White turns around and says, look, we marketed this whole card on a light heavyweight title fight featuring Jon Jones. And Jon Jones, first champion in UFC history to turn down a fight. So Dana and the Fertittas and ZUFFA have scrapped the card completely. Dana White did the public conference call where he announced that they were canceling the fight, and Dana White rips into Greg Jackson, calling him, quote, a fucking sport killer, attributing the whole turning down of the fight to Greg Jackson, which is something that Greg Jackson virtually admits. He says, yes, I was asked about this, and I gave my opinion, and I said, no, I don't think it's a good idea for you to take this fight. And he says, yeah, all my coaches were all on the same page, and rah, 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 so they turned down the fucking fight. Alright, a lot of things to talk about this. Number one, I feel horrible for Dan Henderson, celebrating, I believe, his 42nd birthday tomorrow. So I feel terrible for him getting injured in training. Hope Dan Henderson a speedy recovery. I still want to see this fight. I still want to see Jon Jones and Dan Henderson at some point down the road. Whether it's for a title or not, I just really like the matchup. UFC offering the fight to Chael Sonnen. Not to say he hasn't done anything to earn the other title shots, but it's like, you could call it like the third title shot that he's talked his way into, you know what I mean? But he didn't. He earned his title shots. But basically, you know, an injury happens, Sonnen's right there and is ready to step up, and good on Chael Sonnen for saying, I don't care, I'll fly to Vegas and fight him tonight. Good on Chael Sonnen. That's a fighter right there. I've said some shit about Chael Sonnen, but that's a goddamn fighter. You're offered a fight, you take the damn fight. So, good on Chael for that one. And then just they fucking turn the fight down. I don't get this. I don't understand Greg Jackson's logic here. Again, I'll go back to the things that he said, saying it's dangerous to fight on 3 days' notice. Well, A, it's not 3 days' notice. I don't care what you say, like, oh, well, you know, fight week, we don't do this, and this. I don't care what you do or don't do on fight week. It's not 3 days' notice until the fight. It's still not a lot of time. It's what, 9 days? Short notice didn't really seem to bother you when Jon was offered the title shot with Shogun, when Jones won that title eliminator, and when he actually got his title shot with Shogun. It was, I think, 6 weeks. It was between UFC 126 and UFC 128. I think it was 6 weeks. Still a short notice fight. In general, a full fight camp should be probably 8 weeks. But still, you didn't get a full fight camp there, and you said that was one of the reasons you weren't taking this fight with Chael, was because we couldn't get a full fight camp. Well, you didn't get a full fight camp for the Shogun fight either. You cannot convince me that you could put together you could have a full fight camp for Shogun, for Mauricio fucking Shogun Rua, in 5 weeks. Because like you said, we don't do anything fight week. So really it was only 5 weeks, and there's no goddamn way, Greg Jackson, that you had this fight camp ready for Shogun, that was a full fight camp in 5 weeks. Bull fucking shit. And then Jackson turns around and says, here's a direct quote, I didn't know they had it all riding on one fight. This was after being told that, like, yeah, they're canceling the whole card because they can't have this fight. It's like, oh, I didn't know they had it all riding on one fight. You're the main event fucking fight for the light heavyweight title. And not only that, look at the rest of the card under you. You were going to have a decent co-main event with Jake Ellenberger and Josh Koscheck until Koscheck got injured, couldn't take the fight. There was virtually no one else on this. Your co-main event was Jake Ellenberger and Jay fucking Huron. No disrespect to either one of those guys, not exactly going to sell any tickets. Every pay-per-view buy for this event, every ticket for this event was going to be for Jones and Hendo, the two guys on the marquee. And you turn around and say, oh, I didn't know they had it all riding on one fight. Bullshit. You're smarter than that. You're a smart dude. You might say some dumb shit sometimes, but you're a smart dude. You know that this whole event was riding on the main event fight. You're not dumb. Look at the fighters that's on the rest of the card. I'm sorry. None of the other ones are selling any tickets. And again, just saying like, oh, we didn't have a complete fight camp. We don't have, it's too short notice, da-da-da-da-da-da. How different is it to, in your training methods and in your game planning, to train and game plan for Dan Henderson versus train and game plan for Chael Sonnen? I don't think... Yes, they're different fighters. They're different fighters with different skills and slightly different fight styles. But I mean, you think about it. Dan Henderson got a huge overhand right. He is an Olympic caliber wrestler, former Olympic alternate, I believe, in the 92 and 96 Summer Olympics for the United States. Look at Chael Sonnen. His stand-up's okay. Elite level wrestling and cuts a great pace. You look at the two of them, yeah, they have particular traits and certain stylistic differences, but what Jon Jones would have been training for Dan Henderson, a lot of that, pretty well all of it, I believe, is going to transfer over to training for Chael Sonnen. And you're trying to tell me, and you're trying to convince and spoon feed to people that in 8 to 9 days, you can't modify what you've been game planning for between 6 to 8 weeks for Dan Henderson, that you can't modify that enough to go in there and fight Chael Sonnen? I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Now, I'm not a trainer. I don't fight. I don't have anything to do with training camps. I understand that they're two different fighters, two different fight styles, all that jazz. But I am not willing to believe that you didn't have enough time to adjust your the game plan and the training of what, the number 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, probably, behind Aldo and Anderson. I would probably put him ahead of GSP at this point, because GSP hasn't fought in what feels like 20 years. But I'm sorry, I'm not buying any of Greg Jackson's excuses, which Mauro Ranallo was. Mauro Ranallo stopped short of sucking Greg Jackson's cock when he was on his podcast. He's just like, oh, Dana White, he attacked Greg Jackson, and, Greg Jackson's a guy that loves challenges and loves game planning for elite opponents. He must not love challenges and game planning elite opponents that much, because if he did, he would have been like, yeah, fuck, let's take Sonnen. We can figure something out in enough time for you for Sonnen. You are the number 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, after all. Shouldn't be that difficult. Again, I'm not buying any of Greg Jackson's bullshit excuses. I'm as pissed off as Dana White is, because I really wanted to see this fight. This is a kick in the balls by Jon Jones and Greg Jackson and that whole camp. A big kick in the balls to every MMA fan out there that wanted to see this fight. Jon Jones's image is already tarnished because of his fucking DUI. You gotta wonder if maybe he didn't want the fight with Sonnen because he's gonna ask the telephone poll for an immediate rematch. Everything about this pisses me off. It's all fucking drama and bad decisions, and yeah, everyone involved here likes to call themselves a professional. I know Dana White likes to call himself a professional too, but at the very least, Dana White will step up and he will fucking tell it like it is. And I have so much respect for Dana White for doing that. Greg Jackson thinks he's telling it like it is, but he's not. I'm not sipping the Greg Jackson Kool-Aid. I think this is horrid fucking bullshit. It completely sucks that this card and this fight is done. I feel bad for the fighters, everybody below that main event, because, I mean, these guys are not fighting knowing that they've got Nike sponsorships in their back pocket and everything like that. These guys are fighting to feed their families. These guys are fighting for much less money than fucking Jon Jones is. And just because Jon Jones and Greg Jackson were, let's call a spade, scared to take this fight with Chael Sonnen. Not that I'm like, oh, Chael Sonnen's going to walk in there and beat him, but they're so afraid that they're going to go in there and he might lose the title. He's a fucking fighter. Eventually it's going to happen. Whether it happens now or it happens in 3 years. Nobody stays champion forever. But the fact that you refuse to take a fight, and now it's cost the UFC a whole card, likely going to cost them upwards of millions of dollars when you think about the gate, the pay-per-view revenue, all the money that went into marketing this card, everything like that. All that money's fucking flushed out the window now. To me, it's a complete kick in the balls to everyone that's ever made any money in mixed martial arts, anyone that's ever ordered a pay-per-view, watched a fight, taken any time to understand mixed martial arts over the over the surface level. It's a kick in the balls to all of them. Fuck you, Greg Jackson. Fuck you, Jon Jones, for not taking this fight, screwing us out of a card, screwing the UFC out of millions of dollars, and pissing off Bridgewater's finest. And I'm disgusted. I really am. This is like the most profanity-laced tirade that I've ever gone on this account, and maybe it's going to get me a bunch of thumbs down from Jon Jones lovers or whatever. Whatever happens, happens. Anyways, that's it for me. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and most importantly, one pissed off MMA fan.